Well, hello everyone on this Sunday, the 25th of January. How are you doing, Kay? Just get out straight out there.
Well, happy Sunday to all the viewers and folks who are in the United States. For a majority of the United States is dealing with snowstorm. So the snow is coming, picking up from all the way from Texas onwards. Now it has reached New Jersey, New York area. I think we have accumulated over 6 inches of snow. We are expected, depending on which part of the area you are in, you could get anywhere between 6 to 18 inches of snow. And then, of course, as we go towards Monday, it moves further north. So we are excited. We are sitting at home, all bundled up, enjoying the shows, eating chips and all the snacks people have, rushed to buy from the grocery stores.
Yeah, don't worry, folks. We haven't turned into a weather show, but it's nice to hear that there's snowing over there in the US. We don't have that problem here in the UK. It's pretty much has been raining for about 3 weeks now straight. Get the odd sunny day, but that's about it. So it's a bit miserable here in January. But luckily, we've only got a week left till February, and things might start brightening up.
Can you
Although it'll
believe,
probably
like,
still remain cold. Yeah.
can you believe we're almost finishing the first month of 2026? I feel like,
Yeah,
and the earnings season is picking up, so it's crazy.
Yeah, it's just a month ago. It's Christmas Day, so it's amazing how time just flies past. Of course, this is just a couple of guys looking at charts, giving our perspectives on certain stocks and the news reports, etc., and obviously earnings. So it's not financial advice, as always. We've had a few requests already, so make sure you stick in your tickers for the audience requests that we do, probably about 20, 25 minutes time. So get them into the comments wherever you are, X, YouTube, whatever. And of course, massive thank you to Wolf as well for the platform. We couldn't do it without you. And yeah, we'll jump straight into the stream. But how was your trading this week? Was it okay?
Yeah, trading was very well. We did right before the stream. We were discussing all the tickers we have been, trading the past week, and yeah, there were a couple of new tickers I started, testing out with, with smaller position size, and I'll be probably spending more time on those tickers. And we can touch upon that a little bit later, as we get into the audience request.
Yeah, definitely. If we don't get too many, we can always go onto those and have a look at those sorts of names. But yeah, you can see on the stream today, we've got market overview, fear and greed index, earnings preview charts, SPY and QQQ, yearly performance, our picks of the week, which respectively we have NVDA and Apple, and of course, as always, your audience requests. So we'll jump straight into it. Last week's performance for the market overview then. It looks quite red actually on the screen, but it didn't feel entirely red. I thought SPY did okay overall. But you can see the numbers here on the screen. We've got NVIDIA pretty much flat. We've got Apple down almost 4%. Google up 2%. Down 2%. Microsoft up 2%. And Meta up 5.5%. Amazon completely flat. And just above your head there, we've got Tesla up 2%. So a bit of a mixed feeling on the S&P. Anything else jumping off the page there? I've got a
Yeah,
feeling you might think about AMD perhaps.
yeah, AMD was what, 10%, almost 11%. We have Micron, MU right at the top next to AVGO, up 13%.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, those were I think the real drivers this week. And I think on Thursday it was up 10%, and then Friday it was up another couple percentage points. So it was like crazy. My AMD's run this week.
And we've got ASML earnings this week. Is that correct? Coming up.
Yes, ASML is coming up. We'll see that in the next slide, I guess.
So yeah, that's the market overview. Bit of a mixed week. We've got Intel down 17% after their earnings as well, down 8% on the week. That was a pretty big hit. No wonder we're going to have a few words about that a little bit later on. What are your immediate thoughts on the Intel report?
Well, I think the fundamental problems with Intel stock was up because of the administration's support behind it. But the fundamentals of Intel hasn't really improved. That's basically the crux of it.
Maybe just coming back to reality, should we say? Okay, let's move on to the next one then. Fear and greed index still sitting flat. I just feel like we're saying this every week for the past, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. Obviously, 1 month ago, 57. 1 week ago, 55. So we are just floating in this sort of area, and it makes sense because if you look at the charts and SPY and QQQ, yes, we have up days and down days. Of course, the market is like that, but generally it feels relatively flat over the last month or so, which is it could be a good thing, I think. But yeah, do you want to talk to the key events on the left? It's going to be a busy week ahead, isn't there?
This is going to be the start of the massive week. In terms of that, put to call pretty. We are pretty flat, 0.7, 0.73, 0.71. VIX is pretty flat as well, around the 14, 15, 16 range. As you saw, SPY was up like about less than 1%, but pretty flat. Similar with QQQ, about 2%. Key events, we have major earnings. We'll go touch upon that a little bit in the next slide. Big week in terms of interest rate decision. So we'll get that. Powell is going to come out. He's going to give his speech. Most likely they're not going to raise anything. Most likely they're not going to cut anything. They're going to probably keep it, as long as that's what I read, unless I'm wrong. And then some sort of initial data for PPI, jobless claims, they will start to trickle in around the end of the week. But I think that the big one is definitely the interest rate decision.
Yeah, and that's on. You've written down there Tuesday. Normally it's on a Wednesday. Is that correct there, Kaye?
Yeah, I think so. Let me just double check.
Maybe they're moving to Tuesdays.
Scheduled for January 27 and 28.
Okay, so the decision will probably be on the Wednesday, right?
Yeah, and then probably Thursday is going to be the speech. We'll see. Maybe they'll update. That's what I see it on Google.
Okay, awesome. So we've got a few requests here. Obviously, we've got INSW and TNK there. And we've got Sasha has put in IWM twice. We see you. Don't worry, we see you. And of course, we've got AMD there. It's just coming through from Sasha. So we'll get to those a bit later on, probably about 15, 20 minutes or so. So hold tight. And we'll move on to the next slide, as we can see here. Yep. This is probably one of the biggest week of earnings that we're going to get in this season. So you can see straight off the bat, we've got three massive names on Wednesday: Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla. Again, with Apple on after the close on Thursday as well. So they're the biggest names on the screen. But there's lots of smaller kind of interesting names as well. ASML, as you mentioned just before, well, kind of at the beginning parts of the stream. SoFi will be a popular one, of course, and maybe American Express. At least I have a little bit more of an interest in that. Any other names that jump off the page here for you, Kaye?
Yeah, for Tuesday we will have United Health Group. So a lot of healthcare enthusiasts who invest in that. I think Boeing is also getting interesting since it has been recovering lately. Apart from that, your typical Starbucks, which is a turnaround play, a lot of people are looking at. You have MasterCard, which was recently got impacted because of the 10% cap on interest. So we will be looking at that, and how is MasterCard going to deal with it if that was supposed to happen. I think nothing happened on that front. A couple of dividend names. You have Altria, not that I invest in anymore, but that's another name that people mostly look at. And then you have the on Friday, apart from American Express, SoFi, you have the ExxonMobil and Chevron, so the oil companies.
Yes.
So it's a pretty interesting week. You have a big tech earning, and you have a lot of other big names, in different areas.
Yeah, I think Wednesday night I'm going to be sitting to one side with a kind of bag of popcorn and just enjoying what's going to happen to SPY's price after hours, because it's going to be very volatile, I think.
Yeah.
So just be careful. You're going to be trading around that area. So obviously, we've got the FOMC rate decision as well on that evening. So Wednesday is going to be maybe a no trade day. It depends what you're kind of into, of course.
And I forgot to name one other big name, which is the beginning of the SaaS earnings, and that is on Wednesday after close service now.
This one here.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see how the SaaS businesses get on this earnings, because they've been a bit rough the last.
Oh my goodness, SaaS
maybe 2 years actually, maybe. Yeah.
Well, so right now the reason they are down is because of the idea that AI agents are going to just do the job, and they're going to replace all the softwares. All I'll say this: there's a terminology, or there's this concept called digital transformation. And digital transformation is basically moving all your data from on-prem infrastructure to the cloud. This digital transformation has been going on since the early 2010-11. We are in 2026 and people still talk about it because not every company has moved their data. So just to think that agents are going to come and replace those softwares, I think it's ludicrous at this point in time. It may happen 20 years down the line. That I'm not going to debate that, but it's not going to happen anytime soon.
No, so plenty to look into for the SaaS businesses then. We'll move on to the next slide. Obviously, big week of earnings, as we mentioned, and that's got to affect these two charts on the screen as well. So as always, we've got the SPY daily on the left side and the QQQ weekly on the right side. So we had a bit of actually, I thought this week was flatter than I thought, but so we had Monday off, so the last four candles here on the left. are actually the whole week. So the first couple of days were really rough, but subsequently kind of brought back up towards the end of the week. So yeah, perhaps it was more volatile than I thought. Actually, I didn't really realise that. But yeah, we've kept our position just above the moving average cloud there, which you can see the big kind of grey thing kind of going through the screen there. And of course, the QQQ weekly on the right side, we've got that wedge that I've kind of drawn there over the course of the last almost a year now. Obviously, it's a weekly chart, but if we could just poke out for the top there, obviously earnings will really help that. FMC rate decision will probably really help that as well. We could get quite an aggressive move to kind of 640, 650 if everything goes smoothly. But of course, this is the stock market; nothing goes smoothly. So just be aware of what you're doing there. Obviously, nice candle on the last week there. I'll kind of touch on it there with a little cursor.
Yeah.
That's a really nice candle. Came back down as support and pushed up and finished relatively well on the end of the week. And considering that's 4 days price action, that's pretty good. Obviously not 5 days. So yeah, it's looking good in terms of the reaction we've got in this last week. But of course, there's going to be a lot of talking points this week ahead. So just be careful of where you're going with your swings, your short positions, and yeah, just be really attentive this week, I would say.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on these two charts, Kaye?
No, I think pretty much we're getting up. This week is going to be the pretty decisive moment for both the SPY and QQQ, especially from the whole AI narrative. Because 4 out of the 7 Max 7s are reporting earnings, right? So if they can keep the engine running, I think we may see newer highs. If there is any aha moment or uh-oh moment in this, it's gonna be ugly, because especially your QQQ is right at the wedge.
Yeah, and it could very easily come back down and act as resistance there. So this could be resistance, of course, and come back down and shoot down to 570, 580. That's just as likely. But yeah, we'll see how that develops over the next week or so. I think it's going to be a very interesting week. I'm looking forward to it a lot. Last week I picked Joby, as you can see on the screen there, down almost 10%. Not my finest pick, but as we say every week, we pick these stocks more for kind of the months ahead and the years ahead, depending on what kind of thesis we bring to the table. But yeah, my Joby is more 2-3 years out, for example. And obviously NVO ended up the week green, so 3.8. So it's 1-1 for the year, nice and early, kind of level pegging, shall we say. You can find us on relative platforms. I'll go first, Kaye, this week. You can find me obviously on X. I don't post too much, but what I do post I think is valuable and insightful, at least in my opinion. And of course, YouTube, I've been posting videos every week over there, and that's at SeanTrades _. So yeah, where can we get you, Kaye?
Yeah, you can find me on X, YouTube, and Substack at InvestK. I am getting a little bit more into the writing, so February will have a lot more on Substack coming up, and of course, YouTube is pretty evergreen from a video standpoint. Eventually, I'll be making a lot more videos. Life has been pretty busy, so.
Yeah, life at the beginning of the year, getting everything sorted out, and it's a tricky time for a lot of people. But yeah, do check out Kaye's Substack. It's got some great value over there. Obviously, the handle for all 3 of those platforms there will be at InvestK, as we've just mentioned. Okay, we'll move on to the picks of the week then. For me, I'm going a bit more long term. Obviously, NVIDIA doesn't post earnings this week. I didn't pick an earnings play, which I don't normally do anyway. I think Kaye's a bit more on that. But for me, I've gone for NVIDIA weekly, and you can see on the screen here a bit of a wedge that we've kind of formed, which I suppose is quite similar to the QQQ wedge. It's not exactly the same, but in terms of where we are within that wedge, it's quite similar. And you can see the bottom line there goes all the way back to May of 2024. So there's definitely a lot of concrete support in this sort of area. And we saw that reaction this past week. Not only did we get a reaction off of that line, but we also got a reaction off of the cloud, which is probably the 20 moving average. Well, it is the 20 moving average. And of course, we've got volume profile here on the right side, acting as another point of confluence. That's 3 points of confluence for a plan of attack, essentially. So I've actually gone and added to my position within this wedge. I don't normally do that, but of course, with the confluence we see, and obviously where the market is at the moment, it feels like a good point to at least start. So obviously, normally what I would do is wait for the breakout, come back down and retest a certain level, and then obviously enter from there. And I will also do that with that position. So my thoughts are it continues going higher because we've hit support, we've reacted well off the support, and targets, of course, around all-time highs around 210, 213, something like that. But ultimately, I would like to see it go to kind of 230, 240 by within the next 6 months or so, and see where we are within the market, within the world, within the economics, etc. But yeah, everything changes month by month, as everyone knows. But yeah, that's my thoughts and thesis behind this particular trade. Any thoughts on the video at the moment? Okay.
Yeah, actually, if you look at the daily candles, so you will kind of realize this stock has been in this coiling zone of, I would say, 170 to 185, 190, with a little bit of a spike, in November, going all the way to 214, then basically coming back. So this band from last July, we have been in this band for a while. So at some point in time, what ends up happening is when stocks kind of trade in this barcode pattern for a while, there's a lot of pressure that starts to build up. And I think, again, this is just speculation, but that's why we are here. We speculate on the direction. I think with the China trade or the China deal, where with NVIDIA is allowed to sell chips, and the orders that they have received, which they had to increase the orders, increase their the production capacity, I think is going to be a surprise for the bookings that will come for NVIDIA. And that may be the trigger point for this price to break out, because if you can see, there has been so much pressure on the AI narrative lately, but still it's still is trading in this barcode, right, in this zone. So ideal for selling options on the wheel strategy. However, I think the breakout should be coming up soon with the earnings coming up.
Yeah, certainly hope so with my thoughts there. And obviously, ManRam, once again, coming back every week as he normally does. Obviously, did put forward NVIDIA, so hopefully that answers a few questions. We won't be bringing that up a bit later on, of course, because we have already just done it. But yeah, well, I think that's well covered, I think, for NVIDIA, for sure. Okay, let's have a look at this comment here from Ken. And what do you guys think will happen with Tesla this week? They can have great earnings with a sell-off, or terrible earnings with price going up. I'm trying to pick up 100 shares at 391. The wheel strategy. That looks like it's down your.
Yeah. No, so do you want to touch right now, Tesla? Or do you want me to touch once we?
Maybe we can do it as a request.
All right,
we can bring up the comment while that happens. Yeah.
So Ken, hold on to that question. This is a very interesting question, because I'm also considering Tesla as one of the wheel candidate for this week. So we'll put that in the audience request section. Let me just cover Apple, and then we'll move to that section.
You turned it over nicely there.
Yeah, that's perfect. So back into the earnings season, back when I start enjoying actually trading, because I just love playing earnings season. Interestingly, is like I ended up I lose more, but every time I win, I make a lot of money on that. So this time around, this is a simple trade on Apple. Generally, the market overestimates Apple move about 69% of the time, which means that if you are going to play the earnings, you can estimate the move to be around 3% max. Right now, generally, the market expects around 6.8, 7% move. So you're looking at about a $6.5 to $7.5. Did I get that wrong? Yeah, I put 0.75, but that was supposed to be 7.5. So looking about a $6.5 to $7.5, that's the range on which the stock is going to move, whether up or down. Now, I'm not going to play the direction here, because in my personal opinion, I really don't see Apple, unless they really produce something. They are very behind on the AI race. So I do think the Apple should be heading down. But then again, you have these Gene Munsters and I forget the guy's name. Dan Ives. They keep pumping Apple like it's is the next best thing to slice bread. But anyways, the trade idea is simple. We're going to do an iron condor here. You could do a put, but I think I prefer iron condor. For those who don't know what iron condor is, I would recommend go look at it. And the idea is that you go with a 10 wide spread, right? So $10 wide spread. So you will probably put somewhere. I don't know when, like the exact numbers. I'm probably going to look at on Tuesday, Wednesday, what the real numbers, and I'll put my trade on the Twitter. And then the idea is you enter before the Thursday close. So don't enter on Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday, because your IV has not really expanded. You want to enter right before the earnings and close or hope it expires worthless on Friday. So you're basically aiming for the IV crush here. That's the trade idea here. And this is going to be an iron condor. We'll probably get about like 185 to $2 of credit. That's the play here.
And you're going to post those details
On X,
during
yes.
the week.
Yeah.
On X. So
On X.
At Invest Kaye there for that. For me, I'll be looking in terms of Apple, looking at the innovation for this year. There's lots of things that could be speculated and stuff like that with the folding phone. That AR glasses could be a bit better or whatever. But they actually need to release that, I think, for any sort of excitement in my behalf. So I'm looking for that kind of two from a technical point of view. I'm looking for 234 because you've got that 200 moving average and the 300 moving average at that point. So if we do get a bit of a drop after earnings, like you mentioned, that kind of the 3% ish drop, that does fall to that kind of level ish. So that would be where I'd like to pick up shares probably for the longer term, or even maybe leaps for a couple of years out. So it gives time for those to kind of mature through that kind of innovation, or potential innovation. But we get obviously the kind of standard event probably in June, as they normally do. But yeah, I like your Iron Condor. I don't understand it too much. I don't really trade options that much, of course. But I'm sure a lot of people watching will definitely take that information with a lot of value, and I hope they do. And if you do, obviously drop a comment in the chat there, what your thoughts are on Apple at the moment, and where it's going. But yeah, I like it where I don't like it where it is, but I like it a bit lower. That makes sense.
Yeah. Basically, an iron condor, I'm not judging where the direction is going to be. It can go up, it can go down, as long as it doesn't go beyond the limit that I have selected at the top and at the bottom. So I want
trading within a range, basically.
Trade in the range, exactly. So as long as it trades in the range, and because they overestimate 70% of the time, I am betting that this time is going to be within 70%, and they don't go beyond that $7.50. That's why I'll put a $10 limit up and the $10 limit down. As long as it trades within that range, my contract expire worthless, and I make that credit.
Awesome. All right. Well, okay. A couple of interesting picks there. I picked NVIDIA. Kaye's picked Apple. We've picked a couple of big names actually.
All Mag 7 this time.
All Mag 7 this week. Yeah. So obviously we do have big earnings, as we mentioned a few times actually already on the stream. So I think it's apt that we've picked these stocks, and we'll see how, even though NVIDIA's not reporting earnings, but you know what I mean. We'll see how that performs throughout the week. What's your kind of general approach for FOMC trading? Obviously, FOMC trading happens every 2 to 3 months.
Yeah,
and the event is quite volatile. Do you trade safely, or just not at all, or what's your approach to FOMC trading?
So unfortunately, because I work during that time frame, I generally am not able to trade FOMC. I have probably traded like 2 times in the last 3 years or 4 years. So that I don't really track that FOMC that much for trading because I'm not day trading it, but I love trading earnings. This is the peak of my trading happening during this 2, 3, 4 week period where I trade actively with, this is like the day trade for me, I would say.
Okay, so let's ask a different question. So when you approach your earnings trades, do you look for entry like the day before, the night before earnings, the start of the week of that particular earnings report, or even a couple of weeks before?
No,
What's your approach to earnings trades?
So because I mostly trade the big names during the earnings season or for their move, whether it's on the tech side, whether it's on the SaaS side, these are only typical 2 areas that I trade earnings because I kind of follow them throughout the year. So if it's reporting on Tuesday, I do the prep on Sunday and I keep tracking the price on Monday, and then I'll probably make an entry Monday for the Tuesday, right? Or if it's like a Apple, which is Thursday after hours, the entry is going to be Thursday, maybe 1 hour before close, because that's
that's quite close then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Because the idea of this particular trade is not for the move; it's for the IV to be at the max when you get the maximum premium or the credit, and then as soon as the earning reports, you have an IV crush. Next day, boom, contract is worthless, and you keep the credit as long as it doesn't move. So this is going to be like you won't get enough time to get out of the position. So that's why you have to have a bigger cushion, because it's IV crush will happen and options contracts, they are crushed on the next day. because you can't trade options once the market closes or before it opens. Unlike stocks, commons, you can sell it, buy it after hours.
Yeah, definitely. I think I definitely need to get into earnings more. I'm definitely branching into that, but obviously I've been mastering the craft of trading, should we say, over the last 4 to 5 years. But now I think the next step for me is kind of getting into options, because it sounds very interesting of what you can do in certain situations, like earnings, of course, and you do capitalise on that quite well, and you have done for a couple of years. So that's good to see. Okay, then let's go into some charts. Let's get into some requests, as we normally do every week. Where are we? There we go. What's first then, Kaye?
First is Visa.
Visa.
Yeah.
Reporting earnings on Thursday, I think.
What was it? I think it was MasterCard reporting earnings. Well, let me make sure.
They
both are reporting earnings. 129. You're absolutely right.
That's the vertical line there on the screen, as you see. If there is earnings, I'll add vertical lines as consistency, of course. But yeah, not great in terms of technical point of view. I don't know what to say about Visa, to be honest. I mean, it's down below all of the moving averages. You can see there on the screen. It's even broken down below the 300, which has acted as support in the past. Not so much recently, but yeah, it's a tricky one. Maybe we can go into the weekly chart and see if there's a bit of support there. Yeah, still no. It's going to be a tricky one. You could make a case for this parallel channel here. Let's have a look. Let's draw that out. Like that. And for now, we get rid of the earnings line. So we do have a parallel channel thereabouts. It's not perfectly drawn, but yeah, we're at the bottom of that channel, so perhaps we do get a bit of support here. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Visa? Do you look at this one at all? Because I just do not.
No, I'm not that much into the Visa MasterCard, but I know that there is a play here, especially after we saw this big drop of the announcement of the fee, the 10% cap on the credit card fees. So this could be a good swing play, right? If you get Visa 10%, 20% down, you could swing it, because I don't think that's going to come to a pass, that credit card companies are going to get capped at 10%. It's like, you like it or not, I mean, end of the day, these companies do contribute to to the election. This is election year, so a lot of these things they play. A lot of these are mostly for the show. Is it really going to happen? I don't know. So these are opportunities to get in these good companies at a good price, and then you can swing it. But again, that's a speculation, right? There's another news which just recently came out about Visa and MasterCard. They're talking to Apple Pay to debut in India. So in India, Apple Pay is not there as far as I remember. So because they use something called UPI, which is Universal Payment something. I don't know what I stands for. So they have their own version of a QR code. You use a QR code and you pay through the Google Pay, and then or you can pay through your bank and stuff like that. So Apple Pay, that's going to be huge. Whoever gets that contract, because that opens a big market for one of these payment processors.
Yeah, so I'm just busy drawing lines as I do. From the lows there, you've got a bit of support where we are now. So this could be, maybe this was bought up by, I think it was Man Van that bought this one up.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
Yeah.
So coming back down to this vital level, this could be why it's got a little bit of green here.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting to see what happens on Thursday. I probably wouldn't be trading it before Thursday, if at all. I don't really trade these names, but of course, I always try and be interested in everything, possibly that's going on in the market. So yeah, no, that's Visa. We'll move on.
Next is APH.
Open Corporation. Yeah. We've spoken about this before, and look at that. There you go. That's the weekly chart. Silly me. There we go. Right, so it's daily chart. It's always nice when an arrow kind of returns onto a screen, isn't it? So we obviously mentioned this before, and I remember actually liking this before. So sorry, man, I didn't actually get into this in the end. Probably because I was waiting for a retest and I probably had an alert set that still hasn't triggered. But yeah, we've got a nice move up to kind of 156, 157. So yeah, you're probably amazing in this, and well done.
Like I remember laughing at this diagram that you made that day when we brought this up. It played out.
It happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
But
played
not quite, because it didn't retest, but it still has time to come down and retest, don't get me wrong, and that's probably where I'll enter. I need to check if that alert has been set, because I do normally just set alerts after these streams, which is an important point to make. And while we're here, actually, we'll talk to the viewers about setting alerts. Do you set alerts, Kaye?
I do. But the problem is sometimes you just get so many alerts all over the place, especially on a red day or a green day, that
Yeah.
it becomes information overload sometimes. So sometimes what I do, I close the sound, and when this is too many, so I have a bird chirping sound for alert, and then the birds
Yeah.
are just chirping all over the place on my laptops. I'm like, this is getting annoying at this point in time.
Yeah, so for me, my only alerts are kind of through entries or particular zones that I like. So if it's the kind of crossing, like on Trading View, there's like an alert you can say if it's crossing a certain boundary.
Yeah.
So I always set those, but I don't set many. To be fair, I probably set maybe 2 or 3 a week. And
Oh,
if
I
anything
see. I see.
triggers, that's when I look at the chart and I kind of analyze where the market is, etc., and kind of go from there. But yeah, didn't this one hasn't triggered for me just yet. We'll move it
So
over, shall we? There you go.
so so because it kind of played in the same direction on the upward direction. Now, if you wanted to get in, yes. So that's exactly what you are. Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'll be looking for. Maybe not all the way down to the line exactly, but at least with the 50-minute average and where this volume profile is on the right, I think
Okay.
that'd be quite a nice place to get in. But we have some earnings actually coming up on Wednesday. Now we see that, so yeah, that could play a good part in that. Definitely got to keep an eye on this for sure. Yeah, right, we'll move on.
Okay. Next is so Ken did ask me to skip INSW and TNK. So we'll skip
Okay.
that. We'll go to IWM and then we'll hit the tickers.
Oh, I pressed the wrong one. IWM, yeah, not a very good couple of candles actually. Thursday, Friday, considering the SPY recovered on Thursday, Friday, the IWM has not recovered on Thursday, Friday. Big kind of hammer to the negative side on Thursday, and followed by a very large kind of red candle on Friday. Still, in the grand scheme of things, pretty good. It's trending up to the right. So that's always a good sign. We'll have to redraw this trend line from these lows. So perhaps we have a bit of support at this sort of area, maybe with the 20-minute average, if you're momentum trading. But yeah, small caps. It's always a funny subject, isn't it? I mean, how do you trade small caps? Obviously, you probably pick 1 or 2 and just stick with them, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't trade the index at all, whether it's SPY, QQQ, or WM. Funny, I used to actually own IWM as an ETF. I just like this is too you're too many, your hands are in too many pots. So I just kind of started consolidating into just SPY.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about kind of accumulating shares for the longer term, specifically with the SPY and the QQQ. But it's a bit trickier with small caps because it's so volatile in nature, not just price action, but in terms of companies coming in, coming out. Who's doing well, who's not doing well. Then the small cap becomes a large cap, etc. So there's lots of variables that can happen with an index like this. So I think that's probably why people stick to kind of SPY, QQQ, all world funds, emerging markets, that kind of stuff. So
And you will notice that there are traders who specialize in just trading SPY, QQQ, small caps. Like they don't trade other tickers. Like because the problem is then you just get distracted. Because trading SPY is like a subject in itself. I listen to some of the traders and they go so deep into the SPY technical analysis. I'm like, this is crazy. It's like a full-fledged like a college subject of trading SPY. So
yeah, people do get really, but it's because it's open 23 hours a day
yeah, that's true. That's true.
during the week. So there's a lot of price action to trade, and a lot of people are very
And
successful with it. But
and the futures is all about SPY, like right?
yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving on to next big one is AVGO. I think they are not reporting earnings, right? Are they? No, it's
No, I don't think so.
ASML. Yeah, I mean, listen. I like that AVGO is starting to fill that gap.
This one here, yeah.
Yeah. So when
That's
when do they report earnings? AVGO.
that coincides really nicely with the 200 million average as well. Or
Oh,
at least my 200 million average.
they report mid-March, 313. So it's far away.
Yeah, they're normally towards the end, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a point of interest for sure. This sort of area. Maybe what does it look like on the weekly chart?
I mean, I like AVGO, just like NVIDIA. But I personally don't want to, be in all the semiconductor at the same time, right? Because I have heavy positions in NVIDIA and AMD. So I tend to trade AVGO just for the earnings per se, but it's you get a decent amount of premium if you sell. If you're actually doing wheel strategy or selling puts or doing covered calls, it's one of the good stocks to that you can make decent amount of premium.
There's a lot to be said about using the ETFs as well for semiconductors. If you're just not too sure which one to pick, you just said you pick AMD and NVIDIA. I think that's a good way to go. But of course, if you're looking for the smaller stocks and you're kind of not sure which ones to pick, maybe just SMH is the best way for you, depending on what your kind of interests or targets are towards the market. Yeah,
So
I have had SMH in the past, and I've
yeah.
benefited it off nicely. And I've obviously clearly sold it way too early, but that's just the nature of being a trader. These things
So
happen.
what do you think if you had to enter the position in AVGO? Where would you do you think it's tradable at this point, or where would you like to get it?
I would. We spoke about alerts not so long ago, so I'd probably set an alert for that gap fill as you just mentioned, which is 308. So it's not too far from here.
Yeah,
I would set an alert for that and then see where the certain technicals are in terms of bigger time frames, where the monthly is, where the weekly is, in terms of EMA trends, etc., and all that kind of jazz. I've got a big whole process of how I get into kind of stocks long term, but I won't bore you with that. It's quite lengthy, to be fair. But yeah, I set that alert and then go to that stock and then do all my analysis and then figure out if I want to start a position or start a position, and then or make it a full position straight away. So an example of this is very recently I started a position in Netflix at a slightly higher price of where it is now, but I wanted to get in just in case that was was a support. But I'm very prepared, and I have since taken action on making that a full position. So now I've got a full position in Netflix at a slightly, it's not the best price, but it's still a good price. If I'm looking 2 to 3 years time,
exactly.
that should hopefully be a very good price. But yeah, that's my kind of approach to these sorts of stocks, especially from a
You're right.
swing to long term approach. Yeah.
And then you hit a very important point over here where you talked about that you started a position with not a full position. It was a partial position. And then so basically what you did was you invested in tranches. And
Yeah.
whether you're doing for swing trading or doing for investing, and I think for your long-term portfolio, and it should be for everybody, right? When you have tickers in your long-term portfolio, you always need to have some sort of an idea what percentage of the account that ticker should be. If you want that ticker to be at 20%, then you build towards 20%. If you want 5%, you build towards 5%. The stock will go up and down, and depending on that, if the stock is down heavily, you can probably build it more so that when it goes back up, you have a bigger position, and then you can always trim it down as well as you go. So you have to keep playing your long-term portfolio in a similar way, and not just like keep buying, buy and hold, buy. You should buy and hold, but you should have an idea on what percentage of the account that should be. That's very important. A lot of people actually don't pay attention to that.
Yeah, they just kind of buy and see what happens, and a month later they realize they actually bought way
Yeah,
too much.
yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think that was well covered. What's next?
I think next is AMD. And Ken did respond. He said, if I don't hit Tesla 391 next 2 weeks, I'm going to switch to AVGO for wheel. Yeah, I mean, AVGO, you could even, I mean, I think AVGO is giving pretty good premiums at 300, but I think this week is a Tesla week if you want to get in. But we'll talk about Tesla after a couple more takers.
So AMD then, what a run! I pointed it out, I think, on the stream. Literally, I think it was this sort of week. I can't remember. It must have been because it was kind of at that point, and that's why we've done so many drawings. I didn't take the trade, but also I think I probably would have been out of the trade because I would have brought up my stop loss here after the bounce, and it would have been triggered out just here. So that's okay. That's trading. Um, But since then, we've come back down to the kind of larger support zone, which maybe people were more interested in than I was. 200, and literally 2 weeks later, we're at 260. So it's gone up. Probably, I don't know what that is in terms of percentage, maybe 20%. But yeah, looking very good. You're in a position, am I right? Okay.
Yeah, I'm in a position. And the funny thing that happened was that this week, when we had this massive 10% day up on Thursday, I opened a covered call on AMD and I moved up to 260. And I was like, okay, what? It's only 5%, but we just had a 10% day. Would we actually get to 260? We did end up closing the stock at 259.68, but I ended up closing it at a loss. And the reason was I didn't want my shares to be called out, because losing that $100 was worth it than actually lose my $130 cost basis AMD at 260. Even though I would have made money, but because the earnings is coming up and AMD has had a very good run, we may be able to actually break this 268.72, which has been this overhanging resistance for a while, because we couldn't break this what was back in October of 29. So it kind of had like, you can see it for like a double top over here if that's what you think it is. But I think the earnings might be the catalyst that makes AMD actually gets few more points before we see the pullback. So that's why I don't want to lose my shares.
Yeah, we've got the earnings on the 3rd of February, next Tuesday. Not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after.
The Tuesday after, yes. The week after, yes.
I've got a scenario in which I would like to play out. You mentioned the double top there, and it's not quite exactly a double top, but it pretty much is. I get your point there. So I've just drawn a line across both peaks, and we've actually got a bit of a, not so much, I suppose it is a trend line in a certain way. Well, not really, but it's a bit of support that perhaps we can come back to and retest and move higher. By the time it comes down here, you'll probably see the 20-period average at that point as well. Probably have a decent amount of volume at that level as well. So that could be an interesting point to kind of add to or short-term play. But I will say that if it does happen in the next couple of weeks that this happens, obviously we do have the earnings here. So just be careful if you are going to enter that particular move with earnings just around the corner, because of course that can just take 10-15% off of your position straight away.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of blocked nose, so my voice is weird. I can't really hear myself. So hopefully I'm coming across okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
But yeah, that'll be what I look for in AMD in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, no, I think this is another. I think until the next week, we can still play AMD, from a wheel strategy standpoint, right? I mean, if you want to get it, the IV is about 57-60%, so you're still getting a decent premium on it. And you can actually go much lower on the delta. I mean, if you want to be super conservative, like a 15 delta, if you don't want to get assigned. And if you want to get assigned, then you can go much higher, 30, 35 delta, where you will make $400, $500 on the premium for just 1 week. So that's that. Okay, next up is
so many options.
Yeah, so many options.
Options.
Yeah, next
Tesla. Okay.
Why don't you do the analysis first, and then we can touch upon the sorry, I'm getting text messages here, but we can touch upon the options after that.
So for me, the technical analysis is very, very simple, and I've added to my position in the last week or so. Obviously, we did get a bit of a drop down on Monday. It was actually a point of interest, I think, last Sunday when we brought it up as well, how I wanted it to kind of bounce off of these levels. And the point that I was making, I think, was where it would bounce, and that's why I've drawn a couple of trend lines, not just one, which I think is interesting. So if you're doing a technical analysis, maybe just draw a few lines in the same sort of area, and you might just get a general feel for where things might react. So just practice that when you're doing the technical analysis. But yeah, you can see a nice positive reaction off of this level, which we've seen. So I added at this sort of point. I can't remember exactly when. Obviously, since then, nice price action back above the 2 moving averages, just about. Bouncing off the trend line back above the volume profile. I think we're looking really, really good for a move in terms of technical analysis, but we have earnings on Wednesday, which is always a troublesome thing. So I'm going to wait for that to play out, get my bucket of popcorn, see what Elon says, and hopefully we get a nice reaction to the upside. If not, then I'll be looking for definitely the 200 moving average as next point of support, because we've got that trend line coming through here as well. We do have a comment, obviously, about kind of 391. I think it was. I think it was Ken who mentioned that. Yeah, he's actually just recently said it as well again. So we've got I chose 391 because it's just above the 38.2 fib.
Yeah.
I don't trade Fibonacci's too much, but that line would be down here, and that's kind of what I've just said around the kind of 200 moving average. So I do like that level as well, Ken. So if we do get a negative price action on Tesla, I'll probably be adding that sort of area. But yeah, thanks for the input there. What are your thoughts on this one, then, Kay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was actually pulling up the fib as well as the so generally the predicted move is about 8.2%, and the actual move of
You're a bit quieter, and now he's gone. Okay, so he's gone. I'll try and be Kay. I can't take words out of his head, so I'm not too sure what he was going to say. We'll give it a couple of minutes for him to come back. But in the comments, make sure you put your tickers in. We've probably got about 15 minutes or so left. We do have, I think we've got Meta next, and that's it. So yeah, put your tickers in the comments, whether you're on YouTube or X, and we can get to those as soon as possible. Obviously, we are kind of stuck without Kay at the moment, but let's see what he says. Oh, he is here. That's interesting. Oh yeah, I need to add him to the stream. There you go. I got carried away with not knowing where you are, didn't
No, I
here
think I
you
don't know
are.
what happened. I just got kicked out of the stream. But anyways, going back, so I was what I was saying was the expected move is about 8.2%, but the actual move happens to be about 9.6%. So let's just say 10%. So 10% is a pretty wide margin for the stock, which means you're looking at about a $44, right? Move, maybe a $35, $40 move that you may, have it. So if you do a 35, and so what's the bottom line? 406. So actually, if you think about it, that's a pretty good entry point for a move. So if you look at what is it? What is it? What is that? The green line end?
402.
402. So 402 is about 10 delta. Oh, sorry, a 9 delta. So if you want to be a little bit more aggressive for the week on selling options or selling a put here, I you can move up to 15 delta, 16 delta, where you can get up to $300 depending on how many contracts you want. Let's say if you can afford two contracts, or you're going with two contracts, I would open one contract pre-earnings and then have the earnings come and then open the second contract, because then that way happen, you can probably get let's say if you get a downward turn, right, you can probably open the second contract right after that, and then probably get a little bit more premium into it. So that's what I'm thinking. I mean, probably 15 delta, 10 to 15 delta would be ideal to be on the safer side. If you don't want to get assigned, if you want to get assigned and you're just chasing the premium, then maybe a 30 delta is going to get you close to $700 for the week because of the IV and
Yeah,
the. So I
interesting. A
would
couple
love
of good thoughts there.
what Ken says here, and it'll be interesting to see Ken's thoughts here.
Yeah, so what you're thinking then, Kim, in terms of trading this? I think he's just waiting for 391 by the sounds of it,
Got it.
and kind of reacting off of that number, I imagine. Yeah, okay. I think Tesla, from like a logical point of view, obviously Elon himself has had a lot of things going on. His mind is elsewhere and different ventures around Optimus robots. And do you think there's going to be any commentary around Optimus kind of going forward for Tesla,
I
and how
mean,
that might actually produce some revenue? Because they've got to be going into production soon.
didn't he, I think he did make a comment in the latest Davos forum where he said
Yeah,
at 2026 they are going into Optimus full production.
yep, saw that. Yeah,
I mean, who's buying it? Like, I mean,
yeah.
the $30,000 robot, is that robot going to fold my clothes? I mean, I'm willing to spend if you're going to fold my laundry.
Really? You're going to spend 30 grand?
So you get the point, right? The point is that the robots are not there yet where they
No,
can do
but
take the.
people buy the hype, don't they? People buy the
Yeah,
future.
exactly. It's the hype. So I'm pretty sure Gene Munster and Dan Ives. He's the wartime CEO and blah 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 blah. Boss, there's no point in having a robot if they cannot do the housework,
Yeah,
right?
bit by bit.
Bit by bit. It may take a couple of years, like maybe 10, 20 years, 30 years, right?
So what would you need to see from this report to get excited about Tesla again?
Honestly, where are they with their robotaxi launch?
Yeah, just simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right. We'll see if that comes up on Wednesday evening. I'll certainly be looking out for that comment. We've got one here from Ken once again. Yeah, that sounds good. I don't mind if I pick up 100, so I might do the 402 plus it'll be higher premiums. Tesla has 1,500 plus potential, so I'm not afraid to pick up shares. Okay, so probably thinking more long term there. That's fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean,
Okay.
I will tell you this about, I mean, no matter whether you like Elon Musk, you don't like Elon Musk, all that on the side, I think just from a pure option selling perspective, Tesla is one of the best stock to sell options on, because you do get a lot of premium, because there is just a lot of volatility around the company, and the CEO does his job to keep the company volatile. I mean, that's one of his jobs, right? To keep the company volatile. It's not like dead. There's always some action going on. Hate it, love him,
Yeah.
whatever. All right. Next up is Meta, another big one. They report earnings.
Yeah, I've had a good reaction in the last few days, but we do have a lot of resistance in terms of moving averages at least. And a little bit of volume profile actually there on the right side. But as you mentioned, they report earnings on Wednesday, so it's going to be interesting there. See if the ad kings continue adding. I don't know. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the earnings? Would you be inclined to add if you see something nice?
I
I
think
know
if
you have a
we see
large
a
position, don't
drop,
you?
if we see a drop, and there's this nice beautiful gap that at the bottom around the 550 560 range, because see right now, you have the 200-day SMA, hovering above the candle, and then if you actually looking at my own trend line, the last wick is just peeking out of that, and then the 200 SM is right on top of it. So the earnings is a good catalyst to break that. But if we see some sort of a downward trend on it, I would get interested at the 550 560 level, because that's where the gap fill is, and I will start to add or start to nibble from a long term position, not from a trading standpoint. I don't trade Meta.
Yeah, so you've got the 550 gap there, as you mentioned. There's also another gap there at 506. So if things go really south, then that would be another gap to look for. But on the other side of things, obviously, if we do gap up and there's good earnings or something, there's a gap above as well, kind of 741, which kind of coincides with the top of this kind of trend line that we've just drawn here on the screen. So there could be a bit of interest in terms of taking profits there if we do get a bit of upside. Um, but yeah, no, interesting to kind of go into earnings with Meta. Okay, let's move on to I think the last ticker we've got for now.
Is HOWL?
HOWL.
What's that?
Werewolf Therapeutics.
Okay.
Therapeutics gives it away. It's a 67-cent stock. Oh, I love these stocks. They're so random. Thank you for bringing this one up. Juice Fund, which is a brilliant name, by the way. Yeah, what do they do, Kay? What do they do?
Yeah, I'm looking at it. Some definitely to do with some healthcare therapeutics, right? So it's a
Yeah.
biopharmaceutical company engages in the development of therapeutics engineered to stimulate the body's immune system for the treatment of cancer and other immune mediated conditions. Another cancer stuff.
So it's hit and hope, basically. So we have had a very good increase in volume. I will say that. You can see at the bottom of the screen there, just about next to your head on the left. So we've had an increase, obviously, in volume with this price action, as you'd expect, but it's kind of sustained as well throughout the last 4 months almost. So there's definitely some interest here from investors. I mean, you could take a very minimal part of your portfolio and maybe like a 0.5%, even less perhaps, and you could have a stop loss down here below the most recent lows. That way you keep your risk fairly minimal, and you can just basically target, well, maybe not even target for like ultimate target, of course, up here, but if it was to start maturing and doing a nice move up to the upside, I would definitely be following my moving average up behind. Sorry, my stop loss up behind the stock price movement. Getting my words muddled up. I know you don't trade these names at all, but this one actually looks quite good, just because of that trend line there. Because if that breaks, which it looks like it kind of is, that could spark a bit of enthusiasm amongst investors. But yeah, I'll put it on the watch list and see how it goes. See if my broker actually has it on there. Because sometimes with these names, they just don't appear on my broker. Does that happen to you as well, Kaye? Would you have everything? I guess.
Yeah, I think we have pretty much everything, unless it's like a stock that is native to Europe or another part of the world. We may or may not have it, but I don't know. I should remember even trading. See, I don't trade all sorts of names. I trade pretty much the mega cap or the SaaS companies, which are mostly on trading over here.
Yeah, there's something to be said about kind of trading and consistency as well. Okay, right. We'll end it there. We'll come back onto our faces here, and we've got a comment here from Ken, who's been consistently commenting throughout the whole stream. We like that. So come back every week, Ken, if you can. Obviously, every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Again, it is just me kicking K out for some reason.
Yeah, I'm
There you
back.
go.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah. So the
Much
three
better than that.
stocks, the three stocks, I think for me personally, it's definitely Tesla, AMD. Between NVDA and Amazon, it's like it's a toss up.
Okay, yeah. And for me, obviously, it doesn't really appeal because obviously it's a wheel strategy. And I don't really do that. But yeah, hopefully that you got a bit of value out of those free stock picks there, Ken. And you are welcome, Juice Fund. Come back next week at 1 p.m. Eastern, or catch us on the repost stream on YouTube at Trading Weekly. We will stick the ending thing up there. Thank you to Wolf once again for letting us use the platform. We really appreciate it. It's been a really fun week. I've got about 4 names written down, which is always exciting. But this week is going to be very volatile, as we know. We've got FOMC coming. We've got tons of massive earnings. Donald Trump is still talking, as he always does. So there's lots to be aware of this week. So just be careful when you're trading out there, short term, long term, whatever you're doing with your swing trades, day trades. Even your long term portfolio can be hit in these sorts of weeks. So sometimes the best trade is no trade, and I go by that mantra quite a lot. I'm doing better with it. I'm not amazing with it. I sometimes do stick a trade on here and there. When you see a setup, you kind of take it, but sometimes the best trade is no trade at all. So yeah, they're my final thoughts for today. Any final thoughts from yourself there, Kaye?
No, I think being a pretty big week from an earnings standpoint, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Don't trade if you don't want to stomach the trades going against you, because you don't have to trade earnings. Not everybody likes trading earnings.
Exactly right. But yeah, no, thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone, for everyone joining. I need to get my words sorted out, I think, for tonight. Maybe next week I'll be a bit better. But that's who I am. That's who we are. That's why we come here. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next week, 1 p.m. Eastern time. Take care.
Take care, folks. Bye.